sport casuals like me talk about casual things, everything sports. Today is going to be the day one recap of NFL Free Agency, NFC edition. Last time we posted the AFC edition, so if you are fans of any AFC teams or just want to know what we think about the moves made by AFC teams, make sure to check that one out after you finish watching this one. So let's get right into it. Now, we're not going to go by order of moves. We're going to go by teams, just like we did in the AFC edition. So first, we're going to start off with the NFC East and the New York Giants. So first, we have them bringing Devin Singletary to replace Saquon Barkley. I gave this a B minus. It's an okay replacement for Saquon, but I could also see that it could be good to get a guy similar to Devin Singletary, because maybe they want to move on from the whole having elite running back play. But I think they should have brought Saquon back, so that's why I only give it a B minus. Then they signed two linemen. They get Jermaine Illuminor and John Runyon. I gave these both a B grade, as they're very good, solid linemen to protect whoever the quarterback is, whether it's a rookie, Daniel Jones, who knows. But you need linemen alongside guys like Evan Neal and Andrew Thomas. So I think these are pretty good, solid signings. And then, of course, the big splash made by the Giants, which was trading for Brian Burns from the Panthers for, I believe, their 39th pick and a 5th. And then they signed Burns to a 5-year, $150 million deal, making him, I think, the second highest paid edge rusher. From the Giants' perspective, I give this an A minus. An elite young pass rusher, one of the best. You only gave up a second. You still have your 6th overall pick, and you still have, I think, your 47th pick. Now, the reason it's not an A plus is because you maybe overpaid a little bit, but that's what he wanted. You have to pay good players, so that's why it's still an A minus to me. And from the Panthers, I gave it a B to B minus. Now, only getting a second is not very good, especially when they turned down those 2 firsts and that second. But I still gave it a B minus because they didn't want to pay him. So, yes, you turned down that money, but it got to the point where you didn't want to pay him. You didn't want to lose him for nothing. So, you got him for some value. So, that's why it's still in that B range to me. Then, moving on to the Eagles, they had a great offseason, in my opinion. Potentially the best in the league for day one. First, they didn't start it off with this, but I believe they started off with Landon Dickerson, extending him to a 4-year extension. A minus, in my opinion. Great lineman, especially a great lineman for their new running back, Saquon Barkley. I gave that addition an A minus because they have an elite running back. They've used guys like DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders, who had great seasons with them, got paid, and we'll see what happens with DeAndre Swift. But Miles Sanders didn't have a great season, the best season in Carolina. But I think you get an elite running back, and you pair him behind one of the best O-line in football. It was the best, but it's now become one of the best because he lost Jason Kelce. But it's still an A minus for me. And then they also signed Bryce Huff to a 3-year, $51 million deal. I gave that an A minus. That's 3 A minuses for the Eagles. Great young pass rusher who's, I think, is under the radar. I think is underrated. A lot of potential. And you saw Brian Burns making $30 million. You only got him for about 17 a year. If my math's right, that is not bad at all. And then to finish off the NFC East with the Commanders, they brought in Austin Eckler. I gave this a B because he is older. I feel like this could be a case of them just trying to spend money because they have so much of it. But to be honest, they didn't really give him that much money. It's only a 2-year, $11 million contract. So that's why it's a B to me. If they gave him a lot of money, I would have put it in that C range probably. But it's not that bad because he's only making about $5.5 million. Then they got Tyler Biadasz, center, I think, from Dallas. He's only 26. Great contract. Only $10 million a year. So I really like that. Helps a lower end O-line out, so I think that was a great signing. Then they brought in Dorrance Armstrong again from the Cowboys, gave that a B plus. He's only 26 years old, 7.5 sacks, great deal. And they brought in Frankie Louvu from the Panthers, again in that he's only 27, in that 26, 27-year-old range. He's had 5+ sacks and I believe 100+ tackles in his last 2 seasons. $13 million is not that expensive for a guy like Frankie Louvu. So I really like what the Commanders have also done in this offseason. Now, the Cowboys actually didn't make any real acquisition. But outside of that, I think the NFC East had a great overall offseason. Now looking at the NFC North, the Bears, I think, had a really good offseason. Now, first they signed DeAndre Swift. Me personally, I gave this a C+ because they gave him $8 million deal, $8 million a year. And I think that could potentially be too much for a middle, lowerish tier running back, like not the top tier guy like DeAndre Swift is, who played on the Eagles, because that O-line just makes every running back so much better. You saw it with Miles Sanders. He had a great season with the Eagles, got paid by the Panthers, and kind of had a down year. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen with DeAndre Swift, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. So that's why I gave it a C+. I feel like they maybe could have went after a bigger running back to help out whoever they throw at quarterback. But I did like the 2 additions, not necessarily additions, signings they made on defense. First, bringing back Jalen Johnson. I gave this an A+. He's an elite cornerback, super young. You needed to bring him back. And they also added Kevin Byard on a very cheap 2-year contract, so I gave that an A. He has not produced the most, but the Bears, you got him on a cheap deal. Bears have a great secondary, so I actually really like that Kevin Byard pickup, and he can help mentor these younger guys like Tyreek Stevenson and Jaquan Brisker. Then Detroit, they picked up, I think they re-signed. Yeah, they did. Graham Glasgow. I gave this an A-. Not that expensive a deal. 3 years on $20 million. That is not bad at all for a very solid guard. And you're retaining a part of that O-line that was so good last year. Keep that continuity for less than $7 million a year and 3 years. I think that's a great signing. Then they signed Marcus Davenport. I give that a B-. It's only a 1-year deal. It's not bad taking a chance on a younger guy. Maybe he can play alongside. Maybe playing alongside Hutchinson can really tap into his potential that he could still have. So I gave that a B-. And then their trade for Carlton Davis, I gave them an A- for that. They only give up a 3rd-round pick, and they require 2 6th-round picks in exchange. So you only give up a 3rd for a very good corner. And I gave Tampa a C because you gave up a very good corner, and you only received a 3rd in return. And now they're only 6, but you did lose 2 picks in return as well. So I didn't like it much for Tampa, but maybe they didn't want to pay him. Maybe he wanted out. If that's the case, then maybe it's not as bad of a look getting a 3rd for a guy who wanted to leave. But if not, I don't really love it for Tampa Bay. But then we move on to Green Bay. They started off with signing Josh Jacobs. I give this a B. It's a very expensive, not very expensive. It's a very long contract, 4 years. And now they did cut Aaron Jones. I thought maybe they could have kept him despite his injuries he's had. But they're going to go with Josh Jacobs. I still think Josh Jacobs is great. So I gave that a B. But the pickup of Xavier McKinney, I gave that an A. They needed safety help. They've been connected, or they've been landing spots for every safety that was either a free agent or that got cut in that massive wave of free agent safeties. And he's one of the better and younger ones available, so I gave them an A. And then with the Vikings, I gave their pickup of Jonathan Grenard. I gave that also an A. Great, young, up-and-coming pass rusher from the Texans. So I love that pickup. And then they got 2 linebackers. They picked up Andrew Van Ginkel on a 2-year deal. And they also picked up Blake Cashman on a 3-year deal. I gave these both a B. Pretty solid, reliable linebackers. Nothing too bad about them, nothing too good about them, or nothing too great about them. They're really good. So I gave those both Bs. And then the Falcons really came out with a bang as they signed Kirk Cousins from the Vikings. They bring him in a 4-year, $180 million contract. I gave this an A-. He's still a really good quarterback in my opinion. Yes, he's coming off an injury, but he's still a very quality and serviceable, better than serviceable, excuse me, he played MVP caliber football till he got hurt. Now, I only gave it an A- because he is old and it is a very expensive contract, but I still really like it for the Falcons. The Panthers, they did lose Brian Burns, but they did sign Robert Hunt. Now, they gave him a lot of money, 5 years, $100 million. So I give this a B+, because I understand he's a really good lineman, and you need to protect Bryce Young. He almost got killed out there in the field, it felt like, this season. So I gave it a B+, and the only thing that's stopping me from giving it an A- is the fact that they did give him a lot of money. But sometimes if you're not the best team and you really need to protect a young quarterback, you got to overpay. So that's why I still really like the addition. And as I was speaking, the Panthers apparently have just signed Damian Lewis, guard from the Seahawks. They gave him a 4-year, $53 million deal. Much cheaper of a contract than they gave Robert Hunt. I'll probably give that a B, slightly below Robert Hunt, because he's obviously not as good. I would assume by the money as well. But you gotta protect Bryce Young, so you can't go wrong there. That just came in right as we're speaking this second. And I think also the Ravens and Derrick Henry have their negotiations have apparently gained traction. So we'll see what happens there. Continuing on with the NFC South, the Buccaneers, pretty much all they did was just bring back their two main guys on offense, Baker, Mike Evans. Gave these both A+. Baker had that amazing resurgence. You needed him back. Mike Evans, you also needed him back. Bring those two guys. I gave those both A+ just because you couldn't risk losing them. You can't have a receiver room without Mike Evans, and if they lost Baker Mayfield, their options definitely would have gotten slim because of their late picks. So I gave those both high grades. Maybe Baker could be in that A- A range, but I like it, so I gave it an A+ personally. Then nothing really too dramatically changing. Don't know if that made sense. Happened in the NFC West, but we'll go over a couple moves here. The Cardinals got Sean Murphy-Bunting on a 3-year deal. Gave that a B, solid young corner. Not super expensive. I really like that pickup. Rams, they re-signed their lineman, Kevin Dotson. Gave that an A-. He's a great young guard. Bring him back, help out Stafford. And speaking of helping Stafford, they also signed Jonah Jackson. So I gave that a B+. And then the Seahawks had 2 re-signings. They brought back Noah Fant and Leonard Williams. Gave these both B+. I really like the Leonard Williams signing because when they initially traded for Leonard Williams, they gave up a second-round pick for an expiring contract. And if they weren't able to re-sign, I was not going to like that trade. But since they were able to trade him, he's a good veteran pass rusher. So I give that a B+. Noah Fant, good young tight end. Can't go wrong there, so I also gave that a B+. Now, just like the AFC, some losers and winners. I say losers, it's more of the teams who didn't do anything, but it's only day one, so it doesn't really matter too much. Teams like the Niners, didn't really do anything. And the Cowboys, as I mentioned, didn't really do much. Winners, however, Giants, Brian Burns, and some quality pieces. They're a winner. I mentioned the whole NFC East. Eagles had the best offseason, in my opinion. They're the main winner, but again, Giants. The Commanders had a good offseason, I think. The Bears had a decent one. So, yeah, pretty much the NFC East, outside of the Cowboys, are my big winners, personally, for the NFC. And that will do it for my NFC Day 1 free agency predictions, free agency recap, and grades. Let me know what you think in the comment section, what you agree with, disagree with. What would you grade some of these moves, some of your favorite teams' moves? Let me know. Also, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and turn that notification bell so you don't miss any more amazing content over here at Couch Casual. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.